What's up, guys? I'm just gonna do a quick Bitcoin chart update here. I haven't done any in a while, but I do see something pretty good forming here, and it could actually pop to the upside. We're gonna look at also the S&P 500 or our SPY and the DXY as well, because all of those correlate with each other. But obviously, we can see that, as everyone is talking about, we had this huge bear flag that broke to the downside. But on top of that, we had what I was kind of drawing in as a huge big channel here. This was the upper resistance, 2 taps up there, and then we had this lower support. This is kind of just how I drew it. You could also put a flat horizontal support right across this area here, which was that 28.7 area, which was all of these lows here, or at least this big long wick here that we tapped, and then the few areas over here. Most people are up to date with this, but if you're not, there you go. So what we could see is that once we broke this support right here, which was tapped in this point here, it was roughly around this 35K. That was when we saw a pretty good fall. And, you know, there is targets that can lead us down pretty far off of this potential bear flag or rising wedge, however you want to draw it out. But for right now, I'm kind of looking at this as a symmetrical triangle. We had a bearish move into it, which could obviously turn out to be a bearish move or continuation. But we can see we're getting pretty tight in this pattern, and we do have a move coming here within the next day or 2 days max, where it's going to really squeeze and have to decide on a move. So there's a lot of spinning tops and indecision candles going down, but I'm going to zoom in and see if I can find something and see if I can see what's possibly going to happen. But basically what we see is that the support line, if we go down to a 4 hour, our support line is, you know, it's a lot of chop right now. So, you know, it's tough to 100% call the support line, but based off of this recent wick that did buy us back up, this wick here, 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 we're testing this downside quite a bit. And the upside, we're really not testing it that much, but we have had a few wicks. This one, we popped above a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly about 4 wicks to the upside. Now, we are just kind of consolidating in here. If we were to take the measured move to the upside, we have a target roughly up at the 35,945, which would correlate with this area right here, 36K roughly. But then this support that we kind of lost, which I drew off of, like I had said before, a lot of these wicks in this area here, some of this support. If we break to the upside above roughly at this point, it's getting lower and lower. So right now, it looks to me like roughly around this 30,950 to 31K. If we can break above that, then we might end up seeing that move come in here. And this targeted move to the upside, you know, like I said, was the 36K, but we also have to watch the 35,400, because that would be the test of that previous support, and it either will get rejected and try again and see if it can get itself back above here. And if it cannot, then obviously that's really going to signal some more downside. Or we could lose this support completely and not even get any tests up in there, and we end up losing, you know, roughly 29.3, 29.375, somewhere in that range. We still would have to lose this 28.745 and reject on it. If we look on a daily time frame, we can see that we have not closed any candle bodies below this 28.725. We've had a long wick that came down, but the body bought right back up and landed right on it perfectly. The next candle, perfect wick, perfect wick. And now we're starting to find this uptrending support line here, as well as this downtrending resistance line, and we're getting squeezed in there pretty tight. So looking at the 1 hour RSI, this is something that I've been noticing myself, is that we can actually clearly see this perfect channel that the RSI is almost perfect channel that we're trending in. We tapped this, we came up, we tapped this, we came down, we tapped this, and we're just ping-ponging in between here. We had a fake breakdown that double bottomed, but for the most part, we're just trending inside here. And if we see a break of that and a confirmation, that would be a pretty good sign. But what we recently did here was we double bottomed right there. We ripped up, we came down, and we bounced off it again, and now we're starting to lift. So this 1 hour RSI actually looks pretty bullish right now. But like I said, we have been doing that over and over and over. So this is going to be a nice channel to watch. And also, I mean, it's getting to nearing the end of this pattern, so I don't know how much longer this is going to figure out. But, you know, obviously with this bearish move into it, it does look like a rising channel. So whether or not that turns into a bullish thing or not, it may not. But that channel is going to be something we really want to watch on the hourly to confirm if anything is going to end up happening here. Right now in the hourly, we are starting to turn up here after this one wick that came down. The buyers bought it right up. So people are watching this pattern, I'm sure, because you can tell by the price action how perfectly it's getting bought up and how perfectly it's getting sold at resistance. But, you know, if you were to ask me, I actually am starting to wonder if this is going to actually turn out to be a bullish sign here and we're actually going to get this breakout here. So if we were to look at it from these wicks here, roughly this 30,800, if we can get above that, let's see if we just drew a horizontal trend line across roughly these bodies, because we want to get the best entry possible, but with it also being confirmed. So, you know, because you don't want to get stuck in this chop. There's been so much, it's ridiculous. So if we looked at this on a 4-hour time frame with that line that I just drew in there, what can we see? So recently, in these areas, we can see that we have been getting 4-hour candle closes above, but the following candle each time has been closing below. And we could almost chalk it down if we really wanted to get a really tight entry. I think it would be safe to say that we could chalk this down to, let's see, how low can I go? So what I'm looking at right now is price action of the candle bodies being closed and then the following candle and how did it react. So if we were to, I kind of like this. I like this area up here. I think it's a safer entry. Now the reason I'm choosing this 30,500 area is because here, before this drop, we can see we had this candle body close, and it closed perfectly on that support. And we kept on chopping and trending on that support until we finally closed below it. So it's really between there and here. Even that flat bottom would be a pretty good signal, because once we close this flat bottom 4-hour candle right here at 30,611, that was when we saw our drop. So that's where I'm going to say. And looking over here, we've had we had candle bodies closing below. We've had wicks come up. We've had candle bodies attempting to close above, but then they just sell off. So what we would need to see is a candle to close above here, and then a following candle to open above nice and green and continue up with some good volume as well. And that should be a good confirmation. So that would be something that I'd be looking for, roughly 30,600 area. Keep an eye on that. If we went down to a 15-minute just to take a quick look, and let's see if we could confirm it with a 15-minute. So it doesn't really look like it because we've had candle bodies here. If you wanted to go off of like a 15-minute entry, you would probably have to bring it up a little bit higher to roughly like 30,680 and look for a nice 15-minute candle body to close above, and then the following candle to also stand flat on there. But we can see on the 15-minute time frame right now, we are trying to roll up here, but we still might end up getting rejected. I hope all this makes sense. I mean, the key thing right here is to break through this 30,920 area. Even if we got some nice momentum, it might have to roll back and retest it as support, and then you get your back test. So, you know, there's a few ways that you can try to find your entry, and you just don't want to get too overly excited and try to jump in. But just know that this pattern is chilling right here, and it's getting ready to make a move here in the next day, maybe 2 days max. So I had said I was going to look at the SPY real quick because the market's Bitcoin likes to follow the SPY. And the SPY kind of has like a similar scenario here, or a similar case going on for it, but it actually broke through. So I was kind of just charting this out as a potential, rising channel of some sort. But my key thing that I am watching is this previous support of SPY right here. Let me just zoom out so we can get a better look. And I just drew some fibs on it, which gave me a pretty good, this 0.236 level at 382.33 roughly. That was drawn just from like this double bottom. There was like a double bottom low. It's hard to see because I'm on my phone and not on my computer. But there was, I went from this peak. Actually, we could drop it a little lower, but maybe it was in the right spot right there. From this low here, which was the start of this rally, and then you go all the way to the top, right? That's going to give you your fib retracement levels. And the 0.236 there was almost perfectly touched. Obviously, the buyer stepped in a little bit sooner, but 385 roughly. But now we're starting to buy up a little bit. So now going back to my idea for SPY was that we had this potential descending triangle, or an area that we were finding a lot of support on. And we can see we had, we had this huge rising. Let me even just get rid of this fib. We had this huge rising support that every time we tapped off it, we got huge rallies. But then we had rising resistance that I don't have drawn in right now. But, if you got an eye for it, you can visualize, something of the sort like that, however you want to draw it. But basically, when we lost it, we dipped all the way down to 420. We came back and we double topped on it. And that was another rejection. It dropped us all the way down where we started finding support roughly between this 416 to 415 area. We ripped all the way back up, and again, we got rejected roughly in the same zone of this 457. We came down, and I was under the impression that it's possible we could get a double bottom and continue, but that was, I didn't put a long position. I didn't put any money in on that. And then we ended up losing that support. So this support is roughly between I have it at 414.23 to roughly the 415. So that was kind of my expectations, was that SPY was going to get a bounce and come back up and test that area as resistance. Now, if we started to get in that area and we spent a lot of time here, this might signal this might signal Bitcoin to actually come up and test its resistance, which is roughly around 35K. Whether or not it can get that high, obviously, time's going to tell. But if SPY was able to reclaim this area and actually blast through, then the next area of resistance that I have is around 430 to 431, which would be this downward sloping resistance that we actually tapped a few times, and then we just plummeted and we never came back and touched it. So that would be an area for me for an interest for it to come up and tap. And if we did that, then I would say Bitcoin is definitely going to be hitting that 35K, I'm sorry. So that's the SPY, and then I haven't looked at the DXY in a long time, but I assume it started to get some rejection, which it did. So if we looked at the DXY, it had a huge rising support that eventually, sometime probably in the COVID, in August 2020, it backtested it and confirmed it as resistance, and then it came down and found support at some usual support zones, and it ended up putting in this huge double bottom, and it's been testing this neckline of this double bottom. Maybe not. I think the neckline is really around this 100 level, but we did rip up and we peaked through this high area that we do tap quite often. There was only one point that we had actually broke through, and it ripped us all the way up to 120, and then we came down and tried to confirm it as support, and it just basically crashed us all the way back down. Now, we're in that area right now trying to potentially hold it, and it looks like it's starting to get a little bit of rejection. We can see the weekly RSI is starting to roll over, but you know, it's a little too soon to say, but this could be a good sign for the stock market and for Bitcoin if this does fail to hold. But it's also something to keep in mind is that it could just come down and test this neckline area here. This was an area of resistance at this 100 level that it chopped around a little bit. It tried to hold it, and then it ended up just dropping it. So if it was to remain bullish, this could actually sell off for a bit until it reached about 100 and then get a bounce and potentially continue on its run. And this would set the market, like Bitcoin and SPY, up to have a nice relief rally as this trends down, potentially makes a falling wedge, and then we'll have to see if it gets a huge bounce off that 100 or if it has to come all the way down to this support zone, which is still a retest of that reclaimed support. You can see right here is where we reclaimed that support. I know I'm on my phone, so it makes it a little harder for me to like show everything, but this was that support zone that goes way back. Bounce here, and then a huge pull, came back down, bounced here, and then eventually it was broken. So if it needed to come back down even lower than that 100 area that I'm talking about, then it could come down and potentially get that final bounce that it needs to confirm that, you know, newfound support again. So, I mean, that's the DXY anyway. And it's just kind of my thought on that. But I don't know. I hope all this made sense. If you guys are bored out of your mind, I understand. This is stuff I like to look at. But I am going to be watching Bitcoin as well. And I'm just basically waiting for some confirmation. And right now, it's actually starting to look like it's pushing that area that we were just talking about. So let's zoom in right here and see how we're doing. So as we marked out these levels right here on the video, we can see how perfectly did that area hit. Damn close, right? I was almost like dead on with that 30,680. And that was just based off of previous bodies closing. So that's showing how strong that area is going to be. So like I said, we need to clear this with a 15-minute candle body and then watch another 15-minute, and let's just watch price action progress. And if we can actually turn it into support, that might be the first signal that we're going to come up and test this 30,900 and potentially break through it. So, you know, that's only if this thing's going to get bullish. I think a lot of people are bearish right now. But like I said, watch this 1 hour channel because this is going to also potentially show us where we could get a top short term as well. If it comes up here and gets rejected here like it had been, or if it ends up actually breaking through, back testing it and finding support on it, then we're going to be looking at a whole different style breakout, and that could confirm us shooting us up at least up into this area here. So I'm going to get this out there so that we can watch this in case it does start to break out and actually confirm that. We can, maybe some people can try to make some entries off of that idea. But yeah, until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Peace.